I don't think I've ever denied my love for mythology and folklore on my channel, and I think it's so funny because I've always had a fascination with myth. I believe that not only do they speak to a culture and a time, but at the same time, I also believe that there are also ways in which the means with which we understand the world around us, the means in which we try to understand the things we cannot reckon. And I think that in some myths as well, we'll see figures who represent what it is that a society inherently desires, even though they might not have necessarily put it categorically into words. What exactly am I trying to say? I love myths, and I particularly love myths that have some basis in feminist allegory. So, yeah. Now, forewarning, this video will not be like other videos, most of the videos I do on my channel, mostly because it's not going to be book related, although technically we do get mythology and folklore and legends from stories, whether we read them or they are passed on to us via oral tradition. So in a way, this is slightly bookish, but not in the type of bookish content I usually make on my channel. I guess it's just, I did a video a couple of weeks ago whereby I talked about mythical beings that I love to see in fantasy books, and if I found out that a fantasy book has said mythical creatures, I will pick it up immediately. And there were some beings I kept mentioning, and there was something that connected them to each other, and it occurred to me while I was editing that video that I should probably do a sit down video talking about, you know, these figures, these female entities in a video. So that is what I'm doing today. Hopefully this video is going to be short, because I really don't it's meant to be short, but if you follow my channel, you know that I tend to talk a lot, so I never really can stick to, oh, this video is going to be short and then this video ends up being short. Like, it almost always does surprise me, so fingers crossed that it's not. But yeah, let's talk about the very first entity, the very first being, and I would say it's the Gorgons. I've always been fascinated by mythology, especially Greek mythology, and the Gorgons are three sisters who have always fascinated me. Of course, the most popular that we all know is Medusa, and of course our origin story varies. You know, there is the origin stories whereby she is the only human, you know, the human sister of the three Gorgons. Our other two sisters are immortal. There is also the story of her being turned to a Gorgon, you know, for various reasons. The primary one being that Athena, you know, stuff went on in Athena's temple and she was pissed. Of course, there's also the fact that it might also be as a result of the person that was telling the tale. So take that with a pinch of salt, several pinches of salt actually. But I'm not even going to go into the history or the origins of exactly which one of them I do believe in. No, this video is actually about Gorgons and the fact what they stand for, what they represent to me. Because myth, just like any other form of literature, for me, I believe is personal. Like I said, they are a way in which we make sense of the world around us, and they are also a way in which we get deeper understanding to what it is that the people at that time, you know, recognized and wanted. And sometimes you can put all your desires and your wishes and your hopes into a myth, and it becomes a cultural global phenomenon, like centuries after your death. And I do think that the fascinating thing about the Gorgons, the fact that here are these women within whose gaze, you know, whose gaze has the power to turn anybody that looks at them into stone. And when I think about them, I think of how much of an allegorical feminist statement in itself that is, because we live in a society, and it has been consistent through time. Even in Greek mythology, you know, there's been the consistency of women not having the power to decide exactly who stares at them. We've seen this replicated in art. For example, Artemisia Gentileschi, one of the art pieces, like, by the way, if you've not seen Artemisia's art, you should. It's breathtaking. But one of our art does depict, you know, a young girl having a bath and two clergy voyeurs looking shamelessly at her. So it's something that women have spoken about. It's something that we've expressed in various ways, in poetry, in word, in prose, in art, and I think in itself also subliminally even in myth that have been passed on through generations. Because like I said, it's the old belief, the old thing of women not being able to determine exactly who is looking at them, not being able to turn away a gaze that they do not want to focus on themselves. And Greek mythology is rife with practically every single one of the gods, and sometimes some of the goddesses too, just feeling that desire, that need that they can acquire whatever it is that catches their fancy. Daphne turned into a nymph because she was trying to avoid Apollo. Cassandra got cursed because she was trying to reject Apollo. And don't get me started on the stupidity that Poseidon has done. And of course, the king of all can never keep anything in his pants, Zeus. So yeah, I find it very fascinating that in a culture that has all these things going, all these gods are seemingly like to pursue humans and other goddesses and nymphs, and some of them even taking away their power, their ability to resist. I find it fascinating that in this mythology there's this dichotomy of the Gorgons, who have the ability to turn anybody who meets their eyes, any man who meets their eyes, into stone. And I think it speaks to that desire, that desire for women to have the power to control exactly who stares at them. And I'm certain that most women, especially when they're in a position whereby they feel uncomfortable with people looking at them, especially men looking at them, and they don't want to be the focus of their eyes, they feel threatened, they feel harassed, I'm certain that they would definitely want to have the power of a Gorgon at that moment in time to turn anybody that they don't want looking at them into stone. And then there's the Banshee from Irish folklore and mythology, women who act as the heralds of death with voices, and they scream when someone is about to die or when death is fast approaching. I particularly like the version of the Keening woman, the Banshee in Eastern Ireland, whose voice is believed to be so powerful that it can shatter glass. And there's just something really powerful about that representation, giving the power of such a voice to women, especially because we exist even till present day. True history, and even in present day, women have always had their voices taken away from them. We've been muzzled, we've been gagged, we've been told to practically fade into the background, being visible. It's only until recently, of course, that we've had any form of rights, the right to vote, the right to own property, the right to do as we will. Even in Nigeria till date, certain cultures still would not give a woman the right to inherit the property of her late husband. The property is still given to his family, who would then be the one to determine exactly what it is that they want to give the widow. So like I said, through history, women have always been silenced. Our voices have always been silenced. And then here comes this figure in mythology, in legend, whose voice has the power to shatter glass, to make people cry blood, to have people's ears bleeding. I think the power of that voice given to a female entity in mythology in itself is a very powerful statement, and never fails to just hit me all in the gut. And it's the same thing with the Siren, because you also have the Siren in mythology, who is not just necessarily an entity that is limited to the sea. There's a little bit of a difference between them and mermaid, because some sirens do have the ability, some mythologies do have sirens having the ability to fly. There are more people connected to the earth than there are people connected to the sea, even though of course there are also certain mythologies that would have them practically resemble mermaids. But whether it is that they are creatures of the air or creatures of the sea, there is one thing that all these various mythologies do have in common. It's the fact that sirens have beautiful voices that can compel, ensnare men's senses, and then they use that to basically drag sailors down into a watery grave. And I think that it's yet another instance of consciously giving this power to a group of people whose voices are not heard, to whom society has consistently been telling us that it's better for us to be seen and not heard. and then you give these people with voices. And of course, there's also the fact that the Siren does have beguiling, alluring, breathtaking beauty, you know, which is a direct contrast to the Banshee. The Banshee is not necessarily portrayed as being blindingly beautiful the way the Sirens are, but both of them have their power in their voices. And I think that that layer of beauty, the old beauty hiding death within its claws, within its jaws, I love that juxtaposition. I do love that. And then there is the Furies from mythology, who are basically beings writhed and born to exact vengeance, and basically they are the personification of rage, of justified rage that needs to see blood to be assuaged. And I just love that, because female anger has been something we've been told consistently to swallow it down, that it's not feminine to be angry, it's not feminine to lose your cool, it's not feminine to break, to tear, to render, to destroy. And then you have the Furies, who are definitely female entities, who have this power, and who are the ones that rise to the occasion when vengeance has to be meted, and who will pursue the person they want to exact vengeance on to the ends of the earth, because theirs is vengeance and their desire for it will be met. And I just love the fact that they are the visible representation of rage, of justified rage, and this is given to a female being. I love that. I love that. As someone who has consistently been told that, Noria, you're so angry, you're always angry, why don't you smile more? I know I smile a lot on my channel, so I'm certain you're like, but Noria, you're always smiling. Yeah, I smile to you guys because I like you guys, but in real life I smile a lot, but then when I'm really, really angry, I am really, really angry. I wear all my emotions on my face. There is absolutely no camouflage, actually. Yeah, it depends. If I would rather exact my vengeance on you, a long-term thing, and I want you to be comfortable and totally forget, so that it can hurt you more when I do get that revenge, then yes, I am going to fake a smile so that you don't see the knife coming. I know, I'm such a Slytherin. And then there's the Alduays, who is a Jinn, right? A female Jinn, who basically slices off the heads of lecherous men. I know, it's just, I find it such a powerful feminist statement, because it's so fascinating the way in which society has so portrayed it, that when a husband strays, you know, the blame is almost always put on the woman, you know, the mistress, the person is strayed with, instead of the man who was the one who took the vows and should by all accounts be faithful. And I say this because even at work a couple of weeks ago, we're having this conversation, and I work with dumbasses who legitimately do believe that it's the woman that is tempting the man. So having a Jinn, a female Jinn in folklore, who takes that woman that is tempting the man to a whole other extreme by then beheading said men, especially, you know, I find it poetic. I really do find it poetic. I think in itself, Alduays is a cautionary tale, and a need for us to have this conversation with regards to the onus of being faithful lies on the person, should lie with the person who took the vows to be faithful, and then breaking that vow should not be meted out on the person that was being cheated with, you know, in itself. And I find that a conversation that should be had, and I find that a very powerful feminist allegory. And then there's Lilith, you know, yeah, the Lilith, Adam's first wife, who was cast out of Eden because she refused to be subservient, like, and as if that was not feminist enough. You know, there are certain takes on it that stated that she was cast out because she decided to you know, take her pleasure, own her pleasure, by basically getting on top of Adam. And his ego was so fragile and she was cast out of Eden as a result of it. I think she represents, you know, female desire and female sexuality, and us being able to, and women owning that power and owning that desirability and owning that sexual experience and wanting to find fulfillment at every point of, at every sexual encounter. So I consider Lilith a very, very strong as feminist allegory, whether it has to do with the sexual part of, you know, the mythology, or the just the refusal of her being subservient, you know, because to her they are equal. To her, she is equal with Adam. Like, they were basically made from the same clay, and she saw no reason why she should be treated as less than. So definitely a feminist icon representation. And then finally there's Oya from Yoruba mythology, who is the Orisha of winds, lightning, violent storms, life, death, cemeteries, marketplace. I think she represents the dichotomy of, you know, the dichotomy of who we are. You know, the old fact that we can have within us life and death and violence. You know, we can have the enterprising industrial spirit that is present in a marketplace, and at the same time we can be full of death and the end of that enterprise with regards to cemeteries. And I think in her is that dichotomy of that experience, and I love it so much. I love the representation, the portrayal, what it means, you know. The existence of her as an Orisha is a strong allegorical feminist statement, and I love it so much. So yeah, this is a different video than what I usually make, but I love mythology, I love legends, I love folklore, and I just wanted to make this video. And I'm always looking for feminist allegory, so drop down in the comments down below if you know of any, you know, feminist allegory that you want to share with me. Drop it down. I'm always happy to learn. I'm always happy. Like, it makes me so happy to see feminism in mythology and in legends and in folklore and in folk tales and etc. Like, it makes me very happy. But that is this video. If you liked it, please do not forget to give it a big thumbs up. Check out my other videos, subscribe if you want to, and if you do decide to subscribe, please click on that notification bell so you can know the minute I have a new video go up. I make new videos every Sundays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and I'll see you soon. Until then, stay passionate, love books, love yourself. Bye.